So my parents throw huge parties, enormous. Birthdays, anniversaries, religious holidays, any excuse they can think of. Promotion, party. Pass board exams, party. When my son was turning 1, my wife and I sent out invitations to my son's first birthday party. Of course, my parents came, and then the next week proceeded to throw for him their own enormous party. The guest list is always over 200 some people, and that's for a few reasons. Number one, because my parents are very big-hearted. Number two, they've been in this community for more than 40 years, so they know a lot of people. Number three is a concept that I hear with some consistency, mainly from my mom. You know, Asim, if we invite this one auntie, we have to invite these 15 other aunties. Well, why the hell is that? I have gone over a year without talking to the best man from my wedding, and literally after a year, we'll pick up and the conversation will be like this. Hey, how's it going, man? Oh, good. Wait, you moved to Saskatchewan? That's insane, homie! Okay, so I digress. I'm at one of my parents' enormous parties, trying to relate, trying to hang out with folks. I meet a college kid, and, you know, this is a younger gentleman. This was very recent, last year. So I try to relate, try to be cool. After all, I am cool. I've always been cool. I was cool when I was here. This is a picture of me dunking on Lawrence Funderburk. I'm kidding about that. That is a hapless defender from Madison Plains. I was president of the student body here. I captained this Indian god here. Captain varsity basketball, varsity track, varsity football. I played 2 music instruments. I gave the valedictory. All that's kind of cool. And so, you know, awesome equals cool. So then let's move on to college. My coolness only grew from there. I did all that same stuff, and I joined a fraternity. Cool. Move on to law school. I won the law school superlatives for best dressed and funniest, clearly. That's very cool. I got a great job out of law school, was working, living in downtown Columbus, working hard, playing hard, bought a sweet ride, super cool. But then made a significant career change. I was given the opportunity to join the public sector, and I took it. Little did I know what the impact of that would be on my level of coolness. So I'm talking to this kid at this party, and he says to me, hey, so what are you doing these days? And I tell him, chest puffed out, the governor appointed me chief regulator of energy and utilities in the state of Ohio. My official title, chairman of the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. That's my son, who was hardly paying attention throughout the entire event. So I tell him this. I'm very proud of my position, my title. And the kid's response to me will haunt me till the end of my days. He says to me, man, that sounds super boring. Wait a minute. You think I'm boring? Okay, so let me tell you about my boring life. Did you know that 1.2 billion people across this world don't have access to reliable electricity delivery? 1.2 billion people in this world don't have access to reliable electricity delivery. Can you imagine that? Just think about that. Think about that as Americans generally living in urban America. When you're driving home from work or picking your kids up from school, do you think to yourself, boy, I really hope the power's on so that I can put the oven on, or the microwave, power the microwave so that I can make dinner tonight? Kids, when you are riding home on the bus or when you are riding home with your folks, do you ever question whether or not when you flip the switch, your computer's going to turn on so that you can do your research or your homework online? You don't. And why? Because it's folks like me that are trying to make sure that that never happens to you, or that rarely happens to you. And this is a luxury that we enjoy here in the States, but that's not how it is across the world. And believe me, I know. A few years ago, USAID sent me and some of my colleagues to Bosnia and Herzegovina to talk to Bosnian regulators about electric markets. When we get there and we start scratching the surface, what we realize is that the very basic infrastructure to deliver reliable service wasn't even there. It was shocking. In the country of my ancestry alone, India, there are 244 million people that do not have access to reliable electricity. And if you don't have reliable electricity, you do not have an economy. Think about jobs great to small. Think about the electric-intensive manufacturer, Honda, for instance, my previous employer, who's building cars, really, really intensive electric usage. If they don't have power, they can't do their jobs. Scale that down. Small tech company trying to build the next great app. You don't have power, you can't do your thing. Let's think about the worker, the minimum wage worker that gets up every morning to go make the bread or the bagels or the donuts that you pick up on your way in from school. If you do not have reliable power delivery, the economy will fail. And so, how is it that we have developed this very reliable system of power delivery on the backs of some really boring people? Engineers, I just gain an appreciation for engineers every single day I'm in this job. They have developed and deployed the technology to create the reliable power system that exists today. Economists have developed appropriate markets to figure out how to price power and how to make sure that we don't pay too much for it. Accountants make sure that utilities don't earn too much or too little for this public service that's provided. Lawyers make sure that your property rights are not abridged when utility companies go to lay their lines. And so, when you get down to it, when you really get down to it, and you start to think about this concept, this very, very basic concept that we take for granted, it's astonishing how many boring people are contributing to that conceptually. There are so many different players that on a day-to-day basis are ensuring that this actually is maintained. I described to you some of the professions, but utilities, they do very simple things. They trim trees, okay? They prepare for the worst storms that could possibly come our way. But the threats to reliable power delivery are actually getting more and more treacherous. So on April 16th, 2013, a sophisticated sniper attack occurred outside of San Jose, California at the Metcalf substation owned by Pacific Gas and Electric Corp. Federal Energy Regulatory, this is a chronology of that attack. Former Federal Energy Regulatory Commission Chairman John Wellinghoff stated that, first of all, this was an extremely sophisticated attack. There were no fingerprints found on any of the shell casings outside of the substation. The goal of this attack outside of San Jose, California, was to take out Silicon Valley and attempt to cripple that portion of the US economy. And it's not just these physical attacks that we're now dealing with. There is a new threat that has arisen, and it is a threat that I'm unsure if we can even stave away, and that is the threat of a cyber terror attack to the electric grid. U.S. Central Command General Lloyd Austin has said that it is not a question of if, but it is a question of when a cyber terror attack will cripple the electric grid. Ted Koppel, former ABC News anchor, another really boring guy, has devoted much of his post-TV career to this very subject. In his book, Lights Out, and I'm going to read this to you, he wrote, "Imagine a blackout lasting not days but weeks or months. Tens of millions of people over several states are affected. For those without access to a generator, there is no running water, there is no sewage, there is no refrigeration or light. Food and medical supplies are dwindling. Devices we rely on have gone dark. Banks no longer function. Looting is widespread, and law and order are being tested as never before." This sounds very scary, and perhaps we should all be scared. But know that there is an armada of really boring people trying to ensure that this doesn't happen. From the owners and operators of our generation, transmission, and distribution facilities, to the United States Department of Homeland Security, to the United States Department of Energy, to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and then at the local level, to me, yours truly, Chairman of the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. It is my charge every single day that I wake up in the great state of Ohio to try and ensure that what we just talked about doesn't happen to any of you. So am I boring? Maybe. It depends on your definition. But to all of you young people out there, just remember that the very backbone of our society is comprised of some folks who you might find to be pretty boring, and they are doers. They roll up their sleeves, they hone their craft, and they produce things, great things, things that help others. And if we are going to maintain the backbone of our society, then we'll need for you to do these things too. And so while I hope that all of you, especially you young people, get to do whatever it is that your heart desires in your career, I do sincerely hope that some of you grow up to be boring just like me. That's the end of my substantive discussion, but I have one more slide. Tomorrow is my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. Dr. Asim and Malika Haque. They have not been to the campus for a while, and I'm happy that they're here with me tonight. And of course, we are going to throw an enormous party for them tomorrow. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.